Alrighty, they say we're live. So we're just gonna kind of pick up at this website that I'm at, and I'll get to YouTube in a minute. But first, we're gonna read the. We're at BibleArchaeology.org. You guys know how I get down. I rarely ever come with that nonsense. Um, but I'm just going to read the very beginning of this article. Now, this was published back in May 21 of 2008. Written by Will Varner, PhD, if that matters to you or not. Um, but I just wanted to read this part right here to you. And it says, the Dead Sea Scrolls have demonstrated that the Old Testament was accurately transmitted during this interval. One moment. In addition, they provide a wealth of information. One moment, this website is doing its own thing. And they provide a wealth of information on the times leading up to and during the life of Christ. Okay, now we're going to stop right there. We're going to come back to this website maybe later, but this goes into the question of the video. The actual content and the point is that, well, the white man wrote it, and this is what a lot of people contend. They're really vehement about this. Before I pull up all the other information that is pertinent to and that is related to, I'm going to lay the foundation as to the website that I used to use is no longer in service to really supplement the history of not only the Franks but a lot of other Germanic people. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a history, since I can't pull up their timeline. I'm going to pull up the history of the German people, if I can, early history of Germanic tribes, and I'm just going to read this to you. Okay, and we're at www. And I think I can put this link actually in. It's fairly short. Some of the other ones are just absurdly long, and they make for a very difficult chance of putting in a video. One moment. So this should be and here. And let me see if this worked there. So I'll put it here. There's a spot in the webcam thing you can paste links, but let me just make sure that it's all accurate. And while I'm at this website, I need you guys to understand that um, the truest of Anglo-Caucasian white people claim to be of Germanic descent. So what I'm about to say is not a far reach or a stretch. It's just going to further explain that the things that I've been contending, the things that I've been saying, that they are not uh, the what's the word I'm looking for? They're not. Yeah, it works. So I don't have to leave there to do anything. I can just stay right there. All right, so that's cool. I'm still learning about the webcam because it's different. You can't share the screen. All that's different, but it doesn't really matter. Um, I'm going to go back to the website, and you can pull it up right there, the link that's right there, and you can read it with me. And so what it says is this. It says, the origins of the Germanic tribes is lost in the sands of time. What little is known is based upon linguistic evidence. The Germanic languages belong to the Indo European family of languages that span Eurasia, from Ireland on the west to India on the east. The origin of the Indo European languages is believed to have been in the merger of three peoples in the region between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. One of the three excelled in warfare, one in agriculture, and one in metalworking. Now, there's no way that they can actually substantiate any of this. This is what they have put together. The synthesis of these three strengths produced a folk that spread east and west, so they made invaders. The western branch splits into the ancestors of the Baltic, the Celtic, and the Germanic, and the Slavic tribes, as well as the welter of smaller groups. Listen, such as those as the Latin groups and Greeks. How are they smaller, but they're greater in their actual historical significance? And they're not part of those groups. They're not Germanic. The Latins and the Greeks are not Germanic. See, the reason why I know this is because if you look at the Greece timeline, one moment, I'm going to pull that link up. And this is why, having these things saved and having them ready is really so important. We're just going to just stroll down, and it's going to tell us when the Gauls came into play. Okay. This is why that's such a fucking insult. All right. What they just said right there, it goes against all logic and all modern history. One moment. Oh my goodness. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to copy paste this too as well. Oh my goodness. Is it? Because when you say the Greeks, you're almost talking about the Roman people too. The Greeks, the Romans, the Etruscans, they're all a part of that Mediterranean culture. And for these guys to be claiming that they created the people in the Mediterranean, it's nonsense. See, one second. It's not on this timeline because it only goes to 30 BCE, and they would have been, I don't know, 500 BCE, somewhere around that time when the Romans first came into the Gauls, or kind of brushed with them, but they smashed on them. They didn't see them for a long time. So 1 second. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about any of the fighting with the Gauls. Nope, nothing here. Just people who I know are black, and before I get accused of blackwashing history, which I've been accused of before, prove me wrong. So it's not on this one. I know it's on one of the links I have saved, but it has the then I guess it's the Roman one. Excuse me. That might take a little bit of time to find, so I'm going to just read a little bit more of the history of these German people. Around 500 BCE, they were occupying the shores of the Baltic and southern Scandinavia. See, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's just skip forward a whole bunch. The first written records of Germanic tribes is by the Roman historian Tacitus in 98 BCE. But they come way before that, though. They fight the Gauls way before 98 BCE. Okay, here we go. Let me go back to this part real quick. The tribes from Scandinavia, known as the Goths, migrated southeast to the area north of the Black Sea. Later, they divided into the Ostrogoths and Visigoths and conquered areas in the northern shores of the Mediterranean seas as far west as the Iberian Peninsula. Understand, at this point in time, the Grecian people were already established. So how can the Greeks be under you, dog? Right on. They have thousands of years of history, and in 500 BCE, you come into their stuff. Anyway, let's just go ahead and keep reading. Later, the Franks, people call them the Franks, but I call them the Franks because it's called France, not Franks. Later, the Franks, from what is now Germany, moved west and conquered the lowlands. Understand the Germans come from the Franks. Listen to me. So the Franks are the biggest group. They're the strongest group. I've already stressed this to y'all. There's movies that will tell you this. I watched one the other day, or at least part of it, before I fell asleep. I'll have to find the name and tell y'all later. But and I was like, man, I gotta tell everybody about this because it's about Christianity and all that stuff. It's deep. pagan people burning motherfuckers up. It's deep. But it just gives more credence to everything that I've been saying, that they're not who they say they are. They're not the Grecians, okay? If they were Greeks, the Greeks would have known about these people and been talking about them. They talk about coming down and conquering areas that the Greeks live in right here. So that already off tops, the people who wrote this are they're manipulating what really happened in history because they're telling it from a white person's point of view, right on, who conquered or took over or as I read history, the Romans smashed the Gauls, civilized them. Then the Gauls got the bright idea that we're just going to take over because enough of our children are within the ranks and high enough places that we can do a hostile takeover. But that's a lesson for another day. Let's go ahead and read. The Angles or Angles, Saxons, along with the Jutes, invaded Britain and created England. Stop right there. I already told you guys the people who were there were black. This is in 500 BCE. So in the year 1000, okay, 1500 years later, yeah, there's only part black looking people because most of them have either been killed off or they left. Right. This is, man, I'm trying to explain the situation to y'all, dog, but the white man wrote it. That's why the question mark is there, because what part did he write? What part didn't he write? Because we know that the Dead Sea Scrolls is the information that I'm talking about with the Dead Sea Scrolls is before these groups are established or even known about. Okay. And they're introduced into history. 98 BCE, so-called introduced into history, because this is what they're saying. Okay, they destroyed all the other shit that would have told you about them, but obviously here they're telling you that these guys invaded those lands and got smacked down for a long time. So, right, the Romans had already conquered Gaul. It was their land. They were trying to push the barbarians out of Gaul. What had happened was this: they had once again taken these people in and had been letting them fulfill the ranks of fighting soldiers, right? And these guys are people who were used to killing one another anyway. So it's nothing to use them to ultimately possibly help my tribe be the one who comes out on top. And this is what Clovis did, or Lewis, who's a Franc or a Frank, thank you very much, who did what? Took over Rome and created the Roman Catholic Empire. Come on, man, let me break it down to y'all. But they want to tell you that the white man wrote it. I'm really trying to give y'all the game right now. Soak it up. We're going to skip forward. The leader of the victorious Germans was a German who received a military training in the Roman army. I needed y'all to hear that so that way you can understand their tactics. They couldn't beat the Romans until they understood how the Romans fought. So this is why the culture and all the, I just told y'all what they did, but everything that they achieved and accomplished was because they had to understand the culture. Now, the website that they took down was the one where I explained many a times where there was this power grab and there was this, they had to try to fix and keep the kingdom together. Okay. And the reason was is because these were foreign people trying to impersonate the Romans. Come on, damn it. Listen to me. The king of the Franks, Clovis, ruled over the mixed Celtic, Roman, German population. You know why it's mixed race? You know why it's mixed? Because there's people who were black, people who were mixed looking, and people who were white. I'm trying to break it down to y'all. Population of Gaul from 486 to 511. Clovis's line, the Merovingians, ended up with Pepin the Younger gained the throne of the Franks in 741. His line became known as the Carolingians. The greatest of the Carolingians was Charlemagne, Charles the Great, who ruled the Franks from 768 to 1814. Charlemagne conquered the Lombard kingdom of North Italy in 774, and in 800, Charlemagne was declared Holy Roman Emperor by the Pope. Listen, why do you think the original Roman people who were black were invited? They pretty much invited the Moors to come there and fuck up these people. They were like, dude, these bitch ass niggas is in here doing way too much. Yes, we need you. Why do you think Hannibal was trying to fight the Romans the way that he was trying to fight them? Because he's seen the writing on the wall. Man, I'm trying to break it down to you. Your boy is not lying to you, okay? Charlemagne, this same dirty bastard who's the motherfucker who created feudalism in the sense of he made it to where you have to pay landlord rent now, right on? He's the one who created rent. Dirty, wicked bastard. Anyway, it is so rough. We're going to read some of this Rise of the Franks, 330 to 751. What we have seen, the Roman Empire did not fall to murderous hordes of savage barbarians. Of course, I just explained it to y'all. The invaders who toppled the empire in the West were relatively few in numbers, were Christians who had long contact with the Romans and had become sophisticated and partially Romanized by that contact. What? Partially Romanized. Imposters. The Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Burgundians, Vandals actually tried to restore and preserve much of the Roman imperial culture and its institutions. But Justinian's reconquest overthrew some of these kingdoms and weakened others. It was the least advanced and Romanized Germanic tribe that formed the foundation of medieval European society. And the most important of these were the Franks. Listen, because they went and destroyed everything. The only ones who could rebuild were the ones who had a little bit of fucking civility, dog. Okay? These are the same people who came to America. Y'all need to understand that. The same people who got civilized by the Romans are the same people who came here and tried to civilize the Native Americans, but they're not civilizers because they are still uncivilized. Right. So their plan failed. And this is where they all got it from. I'm trying to break it down to you. I'm trying to give you their history in a short period of time. This is what they did. Look, man, it's so damn real that why do you think it says that they did what? They did what? They actually tried to restore and preserve much of Roman imperial culture. And why would you, once again, listen to me? If Roman is the Roman people are a Latin-speaking people, the Greek people are a Latin-speaking people. If it claimed that the Germanic tribes seeded these lesser people who were Latin-speaking, hold on, why aren't their customs and cultures the same? Number one, and then why is the linguistic barrier so different that you're trying to preserve it and restore it? Does that make any sense? Unless, in fact, you're totally different people, like I've been contending. But I'm going to read something to you out of the book of the Maccabees that's going to startle you about the Roman people, because they're not going to tell you about it right here. So I'm going to have to go fish for it and find it, and then I'm going to read it to you. But first, we're going to read the early history of the Franks. The Franks inhabited the Delta lands, the mouth of the Rhines and Scheldt rivers. No, they invaded and took over is what they should have said. And about 350, they became Roman Foederati and were allowed to occupy lands in the South Rhine, is what now is known as Southern Netherlands and Northern Belgium. Did you hear that? Did you hear me? The Southern Netherlands and Northern Belgium, places they had already invaded, and the Roman Empire was too weak to keep these guys back. Right on. In 350, trust me, this is the mixed group who's trying to preserve it. But all these guys were overthrown. The Justinians, reconquest, overthrow of some of these kings. Come on, man. You have people doing stuff in the middle of the kingdom who were probably seeded from these guys, right? Man, they don't know nothing. Let me read something to you. Like the Cajuns of that region, I was talking about Louisiana right now. The Franks were hunters and trappers and supplied recruits for the Roman armies of the period. So if you're wondering where those fur trappers get it from, why they're so savage in nature, I just told you. This is who they come from. Come on. They were not highly sophisticated or highly organized like the Ostrogoths or Visigoths. They were still pagan worshiping, generally the same gods as many of the other Germanic tribes. Thor, god of thunder, Wotan, the sky god, Tu, the warrior god, and so forth. They were grouped in tribes, and each ruled by a chieftain selected from a family that claimed to be descended from Wotan. Oh, so these are people who come from fallen angels. Anyway, I'm not even going to get carried away into that right now. Let's just keep reading the history of these folks. As the skip. As the empire weakened, the many small tribes that constituted the Frankish nation began to expand the marshes that were their home. Expand from the marshes that were their home. They began to invade other places. Oh my goodness, are you listening, man? The Salian Franks, or Salt or Sea Franks, eventually came to be regarded as the ancestors of the French nation, and their laws and customs of Salic law were considered to be the basis of French law. This will become an important matter later on. In about 430, Franks occupied the rich agricultural territory between Socians and Cambrai. Socians was an imperial arms factory manufacturing shields, swords, and spears. The Franks could now equip more fighting Huns, more fighting men than previously, and were an important part of the army which the Roman Empire commander Aetius defeated the Huns at the Battle of Kalins in 451. Now listen, the Huns and all these other dudes are all Indo-European. They're all different guys who were all venturing out and all fighting off the indigenous people who all live there, who all have what you call melanin or pigment. Right on? And the thing is that what you're not seeing is that if they defeat the Huns, it's not a loss for the Huns because they've already mixed with one another. These are the same groups of people. I'm trying to tell y'all, man. See, listen, this shit is so deep. This is why I'm asking you. The white man wrote it? Because if you just listen to what I told you, these guys are too busy fighting one another and they don't even have any history. The only history they have are from the people who civilized them, and they kept the parts of the history that they found flattering and got rid of all the other things that they didn't like. Come on. Man, these are the same people, dude. Through and throughout. Through and throughout. Some of them sprinkle with a little bit of different genetic difference and variation here. Some of them sprinkle a little difference of variation and difference in the genetics there, but they're the same dirty mother suckers. I'm trying to tell y'all, man. I've been on this for a long. I've been telling y'all the French are so powerful. This is why it's like, if you don't really know what I'm saying right now, you need to understand every single white nation on earth are pretty much Franks, including the so-called Ruskies. But there are a mix of the Franks and the Huns and a couple of the. This is why they're considered Scandinavian, right? Slavic. Can you dig it? Right? This is why they make that differentiation, but it's not really so different. Man, y'all really need to get it though, y'all. Like these are the same people. Okay. The advent of Clovis. 41. The 15-year-old Clovis. This name is a form of Lewis. No, it's not a. It's not a form of Lewis. It's gosh. See, that's how they try to translate it. Okay, it's the closest thing to it. But Clovis is Clovis, damn it, which became a favorite name of the French royal dynasty. Became a leader of his small tribe. Since, as we have noted, the chiefs of Frankish tribes were chosen from a single extended family claiming to be descendant of the god Wotan, Clovis began killing off the other members of his family, and so reducing the number of people who could compete with him for authority. Consolidating the other tribes under his leadership in this fashion, in 5 years, he united the Franks under his personal rule. How different is he from anybody else in history? Not at all. Not different at all. None of them could achieve it. But in 481, after years and years and years of learning Roman tactics, if you go and use Roman tactics on guys who aren't using Roman tactics, understand it's over for them. Man, listen, it's so epic as to how people could really, 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 really not understand the situation. It really is sad, you know. Here we go, though. So I'm about to read something out the scripture, and then we're going to hold to the fire if you think the white man wrote it. We're going to go to here we go. Just going to go back to Genesis, and we're going to read something to you. It's the white man. Okay, he wrote it. Even though the Dead Sea Scrolls, as I read to you earlier, that were found 1,000 years prior to them even putting the stuff together that vindicated everything that they were doing. Right on. And who knows how old the Dead Sea Scrolls is, but understand it's that old. It's old enough to have housed the book of Enoch. It's that old. So check this out. And we're in Genesis chapter 9, verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, increase and multiply and fill the earth and have dominion over it. And the dread and fear of you shall be upon all the wild beasts of the earth, and on all the birds of the sky, and on all things moving upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. I have placed them under your power. Every reptile which is living shall be to you for meat. I have given all things to you as the green herbs. But flesh with blood of life ye shall not eat. For your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of all wild beasts, at the hand of all wild beasts, and I will require the life of man at the hand of his brother man. He that sheds man blood, instead of that blood shall his own be shed, for in the image of God I made man. But do ye increase and multiply and fill the earth and have dominion over it. I'll stop right there. They believe that a white man wrote that. But they also believe that a white man wrote this. We're going to go all the way forward. We're going to jump into the book of Leviticus, chapter 20, I want to say 21. Where are we at? Let's say it's verse 25. And ye shall make a distinction between the clean and the unclean cattle, and between the clean and unclean birds. And ye shall not defile your souls with cattle, or with birds, or with any creeping things of the earth, which I have separated for you by reasons of uncleanness. And ye shall be holy to me, because I, the Lord your God, am holy, who have separated you from all nations to be mine. Now stop right there. I will elaborate that this is speaking on the children of Israel being chosen and separated. But I need you guys to understand this right here, that if you think a white man had the logical sense to change the standards of living from the people who seed from Noah, right, to a whole nother standard, right? Unless he obviously, I need y'all to understand. You're saying the white man wrote it, but the white man don't even have history on the planet that substantiates who and where the fuck he comes from. But some of them claim they come from a sky god named Wotan. There's one of them who lived, his name is Clovis, who did a massive power grab and hostile takeover and led his people to their own version of the promised land. And to this day, they're still in power. But you can't even prove where Clovis comes from. You don't even know where he comes from. There's no proof of that. But somehow, some way, shape, and form, they wrote what I just read to you. But they don't even live by those standards right now, and they never have and never will. This is why the term of the scripture gets under their skin so much, because it does not resonate to them. Death, destruction, malice, and malevolence resonates with them for whatever reason. I can't dictate that to you, but they know why that is. And this is a fact. This is the truth. This is nothing but the truth. When I say what I say, I stand on several different pieces of foundation. Number one, all the things that I just read, from the history of the early Germans to the rise of the Franks, okay, to reading about the actual findings of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Dead Sea Scrolls being substantiation of what the Old Testimony has written. So damn what a man has to say, because a man cannot go against what has been found, what substantiates what people have said that, well, who knows who wrote it? Well, obviously someone wrote it. Someone put it down. But the scrolls, okay, are saved in such a fashion, right, that one can say that it's not written, it's etched. Okay, now follow me. The idea, the concept that a group of people who had to be civilized by another group of people who were so uncouth that they destroyed and decimated a group of people who are historically linked to being so-called chosen people of the deity of the Bible. And yet the white man wrote it. I can tell you what he did right. He wrote what it is that he wants you to see and believe. Because if he gets you to believe the okie doke, then he got you. But if he can't get you, then he don't got you. Point proven right here. It says right here in verse 18, no man who has a blemish on him shall draw nigh, nor a blind man, blind, with his nose disfigured or his ears cut, a man who has a broken hand or a broken foot, a humpback, a bleared eye, or that has lost his eyelashes, or a man that has a malignant ulcer or tetter, or one that has lost a testicle. Stop right there. But if you let these guys tell you right now, it's either come as you are is the thing, but it's like, what are you talking about? Right. That goes against what's written right here. That's why it says the Old Testament and not the New Testament is so much substantiated, because the New Testament is something that the same people who I told you who took over the Roman Empire and created the Roman Catholic Empire, the Franks or the Franks, aka Frenchies, aka all Germanic people, right? Created the New Testimony to substantiate their existence as Gentiles. Woo! Come on now. And the reason why they did as such is because they invited themselves as imposters willingly into the lives of not only the Greeks, but the Romans. So when one so-called apostle, Paul, speaks life unto the Gentiles, these people have the sickness in their mind to believe that they will be absolved from the wrongdoing of the things that they have committed against the people that you are, that I am. This is a fact. This is a fact. I'm trying to tell y'all right now what the truth is. This is, man, it can't even get no realer than this. Because if they wrote it, it wouldn't be written like this, let me tell you that. There would be no contradiction that you had to worry about. Okay? There are no loopholes. You understand that? If you let these people tell it, right on, they're getting struck on your cheek and then turning the other cheek means you're going to take it again. No, when you let somebody hit you and then you turn the other side and you say, okay, oh, you're really tripping. Now I'm about to get your ass. That's what that's for. Okay? It's not so that way you're a pacifist and a sucker. They didn't write that. Let me go ahead and find this stuff in the book of the Maccabees real quick. Break something down to you about the Romans that you're going to find very interesting. And this is right before the death of one Judas Maccabeus. And I find this, I found it so disgusting in a sense, because it was like, oh, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that they did what they did on purpose. And I'm talking about the Romans, because here we go. This is chapter 8 of the first Maccabees. Now Judas had heard the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league amity with them that came unto them. Stop right there. Did I not read to y'all how the Romans made those dirty ass bastards who invaded the pieces of Gaul that they invaded? Okay? They made them confederati. Huh? Did I not read that to you? So this, I'm okay, tie it all in. Thank you very much. And that they were men of great valor. And it was told of him of their wars and noble acts, which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, and what they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of silver and gold, which is there, and that their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them, and the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them, and given them a great overthrow, so that rest did give them tribute every year. Beside this, they had discomfited in battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Kittims, with others that lifted up themselves against them and had overcome them, and how also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, had came against them in battle, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots and a very great army, and was discomfited by them, and how they took him alive and coveted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and that which was agreed upon, and the country of India and Media and Lydia, and the goodliest of countries which they took of him, and gave to King Eumenes. Moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them, and that they, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them slew many of them, and carried away captains and their captives and their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possessions of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be servants unto this day. What? And brought them to be servants unto this day. So there's people right now who were living, okay, who were still slaves. That happened under, you guys have to get this right now. You guys have to understand this right now. When this stuff is happening, the people who take over Rome are the Franks. Okay? Can you dig that? All right? So they're like the people who are they still control all of this stuff to this day. They're not lying. They're telling the truth. Man, they're telling the truth. Come on, let me go ahead and just keep it pushing. It was told him, besides, how they destroyed and brought under their dominion all other kingdoms and isles that any time resisted them, but with their friends and such as relied upon them, that kept amity, and they that had conquered kingdoms both afar and nigh, insomuch as all that heard of their fame were afraid of them. Also that whom they would also help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. Yet for all this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby. Moreover, how they made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end they might be well ordered, and that they committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there were neither envy nor emulation among them. In consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Achos, and Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to make league of amity and confederacy with them, and to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them. For they saw the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. They went therefore to Rome, which was a great journey, and came into the Senate, where they spake and said, Judas Maccabeus with his brethren, and the people of the Jews, have sent us unto you to make confederacy and peace with you, and that we might be registered your confederates and friends. So the matter pleased the Romans well. And this is the copy of the epistle that the Senate wrote back again in the tables of brass, and sent to Jerusalem, that there they might have by them a memorial of peace and confederacy. This is what it said. Good success be to the Romans and to the people of the Jews, by sea and by land forever. The sword also and enemy be afar from them. If there come first any war upon the Romans, or any of their confederates throughout all their dominion, the people of the Jews shall help them. Who does this sound like right now to this day? As the time shall be appointed with all their heart, neither shall there give anything unto them that make war upon them, or aid them with victuals, weapons, money, or ships, as it has seemed good unto the Romans. But they shall keep their covenants without taking anything therefore. In the same manner also, if war come first upon the nation of the Jews, the Romans shall help them with all their heart, according as the time shall be appointed them. Neither shall victuals be given to them that take part against them, or weapons, or money, or ships, as it hath seemed good to the Romans. But they shall keep their covenants, and that without deceit. According to these articles, did the Romans make a covenant with the people of the Jews? Howbeit hereafter, the one party or the other shall think meet to add or diminish anything, they may do it at their pleasures, and whatsoever they shall add or take away shall be ratified. Stop right there. That justifies the Romans fucking over the Jews once everything fell to pieces. But I'm going to go forward. According to these articles, and I'm not saying that makes it right, but because you agreed to that makes it right. According to these articles, did the Romans make a covenant with the people of the Jews? Howbeit hereafter, the one party or the other think meet to add or diminish anything, they may do it at their pleasures, and whatsoever they shall add or take away shall be ratified. And as the touchings, the evils that King Demetrius, this is why I hate my name, doeth to the Jews, we have written unto him, saying, wherefore hast thou unto him, wherefore hast thou made thy heavy yoke, hast thy heavy yoke upon our friends and confederates the Jews. If therefore they complain any more against thee, we will do them justice and fight with thee by sea and by land. Furthermore, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his hosts were slain in battle, he sent Bacchides and Alchemists unto the land of Judea the second time, with them the chief of the strength of his host. Stop right here. This is cutting forth, and this is going to listen to what happens. Listen to what happens. Furthermore, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his host were slain in battle, he sent Bacchides and Alchemists into the land of Judea the second time, with the chief strength of his host, who went forth by the way that leadeth to Galgala, and pitched their tents before Massalah, which is in Arbos. And after they had won it, they slew much people. Also, the first month of the 150th and second year, they encamped before Jerusalem. Now, this is some years out, because if you look up, Alexander the Great he's in the very first chapter, and the years don't align. Like, so you have to do the years right. But anyway, not worried about that. This is how it was accounted for them at the time. Also, the first month of the 150th and second year, they encamped before Jerusalem, from whence they removed and went to Berea, and with 20,000 footmen and 2,000 horsemen. Now Judas had pitched his tents at I want to say that's Elisa, and 3,000 chosen men with him. Now stop right here. While this is happening, I need y'all to understand, this is like a movie. While they're doing this with the Romans, this is happening. Okay? All right? While they're making league and confederacy with the Romans, the Greeks, King Demetrius is sending in this second group to come and get Judas Maccabeus. Now Judas had pitched his tents at Elsa, or at Elisa, and 3,000 chosen men with him. With seeing the multitude of the army to be so great, were so afraid. Whereupon many conveyed themselves out of the host, insomuch as their abode there are no more to be 800 men. When Judas therefore saw that his host slipped away, stop right there. They're justifying the host being a physical body of people. But if you read the scripture, you will also understand that a host sometimes is a single entity that can do things that are not normal. But I'm going to keep it pushing. When Judas therefore saw that his host slipped away, and that the battle pressed upon him, he was sore troubled in mind and much distressed, for that he had no time to gather them together. Nevertheless, unto them that remain, he said, let us arise and go against our enemies, if in peradventure we may be able to fight with them. But they dehorted with him, saying, we shall never be able. Let us now rather save our lives, and hereafter we will return with our brethren and fight against them, for we are but few. Listen to what the fool says, Judas Maccabeus. Then Judas said, God forbid that I do this thing and flee away from them. If our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor. Let me just go ahead and speak to something right there. See, Judas Maccabeus is not a battle. He's not a battle-hardened, battle-trained dude. He just stepped into the role of being a revolutionary freedom fighter, a guerrilla fighter. And the difference between a trained soldier, okay, and a guerrilla fighter, right on, like, because you could be a soldier who's using guerrilla tactics, but you could be a guerrilla who is just soldiering, okay, and he soldiered to his death when he did this. Because any sensible king from the Old Testament would have never done that. They're for sure retreating, falling back. They're going to call on the Most High God, but you have to understand, the Most High God has turned his back on the people at this point. But even then, he's done things for them to reach out to show him, like, I haven't totally abandoned you. This is why there's faith in this man's heart, but he's never lost. This is the greater point that I'm trying to make. He's never lost. So he'd rather lose here and say, okay, he won all these battles and lost here, than lose and try to come back and win. I don't understand the logic, but that's because he's not a trained soldier. With that, the host of Bacchides removed out of their tents and stood over against them, their horsemen being divided into two groups, and their slingers and archers going before the host. And they marched in forward and they that marched in the forward were all mighty men. As for Bacchides, he was in the right wing. So the host drew near on the two parts and sounded their trumpets. They also, Judas's side, even they sounded their trumpets, so that the earth shook at the noise of the armies, and the battle continued from morning till night. Now when Judas perceived that Bacchides and the strength of the army were on the right side, he took with him all the hardy men who discomfited the right wing and pursued them unto the Mount Azotus. But when the left wing saw that the people on the right wing were discomfited, they followed upon Judas, and they were with him hard at the heels from behind. Whereupon there was a sore battle, insomuch many were slain on both parts. Judas also was killed, and the remnant fled. Then Jonathan and Simon took Judas, their brother, and buried him in the sepulchres of their fathers in Modin. Moreover, they bewailed him, and all Israel made great lamentation for him. Now listen to this part. And mourned many days, saying, How is the valiant man fallen that delivered Israel? As for the other things concerning Judas and his wars and noble acts which he did, and his greatness, they are not written, for they were very many. Stop right there. So this guy gets killed, right? All the things he did aren't written down, right? That's so sad. So sad. But let me go ahead and just pick this up right there. Now, after the death of Judas, the wicked began to put forth their heads in all the coast of Israel, and there arose of all such as wrought iniquity. And I'm going to stop right there because I need y'all to understand. No. Let me just read that in the country revolted. Let me go ahead and get that real quick. because that's important. In those days was also a great famine, by reason whereof the country revolted and went with them. So stop right there. They've been starved off, right on, because the the Greek armies have obviously pressed in. They smashed Judas. There's nobody to fight for them. So now there's going to right, the famine that obviously presses on is from the boat being on the neck of the Israelite people, or the Jews, excuse me, by the by the by the Greeks or the Grecians. Why this is all so important is because I know that the white man wrote this part of the book. Right on. Um, they've had a lot of time to reform the book of the Maccabees the way that they wanted it to be, because it was written. You can tell by how it's written, it was formulated differently when it was first written. And by reason of trying to puff up one group of the Assyrians, who are a subsidiary group of the Ostrogoth Visigoth family, who would have made the Ottoman Empire, who would have see, once again, you guys got to understand history and know how deep this stuff goes. And these are the same people who are known as the so-called Pharisees, who take over the identity of the Jews. And they're known as the Jewish people to this day. In 51 minutes, I was able to break down a lot of different stuff. This is a jewel right here. This video is a jewel. I really hope you guys will. I pray you guys enjoy this one, because this one is beautiful. Reading the book of the Maccabees to you real quick, I can't stress it enough. It's actually considered historical text, not biblical text. So much in the sense that that, as I just read to you, the sense that it gave to the host is not a spiritual one, but a more physical one. And not taking away that a host is not a physical thing. Of course it is, but there are entities, there are factors sometimes that individuals bring that make them individually almost themselves a host. Like they have to be maintained themselves. They have a This is why the captain of the host, right on, is a special individual, because they're not just maintaining the regular army, but the titans within the army, or the mighty men who are freaks of nature within the army, who once again can do extraordinary things. All of it's relative. It all just depends how a person looks at history. But my perception of history is that the same people that the Romans, black Romans, are talking about, blue, black, blurple Romans, had to like these blue black Romans, like they're not, they're black people. Like some of them are brown like us, but a lot of them are super dark skinned. A lot of them bearded or semi-bearded. But if you look at the pictures of Hercules, some of his depictions are a very dark skinned guy, semi-bearded with red like hair. Some of the other pictures of Heracles, depending on how you say it, he's fully bearded, still darker skinned, not completely dark, long hair. The Grecians, same thing. Blue black. Tire black people in some of their depictions. Bearded, right? With black hair, right? And it's just a beautiful thing to see that I know that I am not telling you a lie. When the Moors or the Mulis, all right, which means eggplant, which is describing the visage of the invader that came into one Italy, that's how dark they were. I'm trying to explain to you what happened. The same people who were already there tried to come and take back their home. The so-called Moors are an admixture of 7 different people that I cannot or do not care to delve off into right now at this moment. But what I will say, what I will give into, is that the greater part of history would have you to believe that the Romans and the Greeks are pale-skinned people, and they're overtaken by pale-skinned people. But how would you know the difference then? That doesn't make any sense. The depictions of the things that we see are obviously not that factor. The justice that they do not exhibit is not that factor. I need you to understand, one Judas Maccabeus tried to do something intelligent and then lost his life while in the middle of making league with all. Understand, had he went and did that himself, he would have been in a much better position. But he cost himself his life sending other people, and then he put his nation in harm's way because what? The Romans became the power group, overthrow the Greeks, step in, put their foot on the necks of the Israelites that are left. Right on. The Pharisees seed the population, become this Jewish people, okay? And the so-called Jews that are really the Israelite people that are left, who are in pockets, remnants, and enclaves, they are now a minority voice. And the Jew, the Israelite, that is one Yeshua, okay, is birthed from these people and his bloodline. That so-called endless genealogy that one so-called apostle Paul calls a fable out of his mouth, where he can't even vindicate whom his own father is. Yet this man holds the ability to be a Roman citizen, and yet he calls himself an Israelite. But his visage and his apparel makes him seem to be by a trained cold killer to say that this man is an Egyptian. But we're not even going to get carried away into that. The whole point being this: the people that you think wrote it, things that I was just reading, right on. The question mark is that what did or didn't they write? And then what are you willing to let go that they didn't write and say, okay, well, they wrote that, but that's not something that they actually invented. They didn't invent that. That's not theirs. It's not theirs to own in that sense. And I think people are giving a group of not just Johnny come latelys, but they're giving a group of what's the word I'm looking for? Low life imposters. So much credit. I mean, they're giving them a profound level of credence when they do this. And it's something that, that you can't ignore. I have several little pieces I'm working on right now because I'm getting ready to salute y'all and get up out of here. Uh, it's been a blast. Um, don't worry, I got a lot more coming. I want to do. It's going to take a few days at a time, maybe a week at a time, to produce the videos that I want to produce, and then do like a little webcam behind this. And they're not like the live streams, but they're still live. So you just have to just look for it, find it. Um, what else is there? Let's just one more time read this to you. And I'm going to read something from the Old Testimony while I do that. Here we go. And the Lord spoke to Moses. This is verse 1 of chapter 17 of Leviticus. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and to his sons and to all the children of Israel. Thou shalt say to them, This is the word of the Lord. This is the word which the Lord has commanded, saying, Every man of the children of Israel, or the strangers abiding among you, who shall kill a calf or a sheep or a goat in the camp, or who shall kill it out of the camp, and shall not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of witness, so as to sacrifice it for a whole burnt offering or peace offering to the Lord, to be acceptable for a sweet smelling savor. And whosoever shall slay it without, and shall not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of witness, so as to offer it as to a gift to the Lord, before the tabernacle of the Lord, blood shall be imputed to that man. He has shed blood. That soul shall be cut off from his people. The children of Israel may offer their sacrifices, all that they slay in the fields, and bring them to the Lord unto the doors of the tabernacle of witness, to the priest. and they shall sacrifice them as the peace offering to the Lord. And the priest shall pour the blood on the altar round about before the Lord by the doors of the tabernacle of witness, which shall offer the fat for a sweet smelling savor to the Lord. They shall no longer offer their sacrifices to vain gods, after which they go a whoring. It shall be a perpetual statute to you for your generations. And thou shalt say to them, whatever man of the children or of Israel or of the sons of the proselytes abiding among you shall offer a whole burnt offering or sacrifice, which shall not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of witness to sacrifice it to the Lord, that man shall be destroyed from among his people. And whatever man of the children of Israel or the stranger or strangers abiding among you shall eat any blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eats blood, and I will destroy it from its people. For the life of flesh is its blood, and I have given it to you, and I have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your souls. For its blood shall make atonement for the soul. Therefore, I said to the children of Israel, no soul of you eat blood, and the stranger that abides among you shall not eat blood. And whatever man of the children of Israel or the strangers abiding among you shall take any animals in the hunting, beast or bird which is eaten, then he shall pour out the blood and cover it in the dust. For the blood of all flesh is its life. And I said to the children of Israel, ye shall not eat the blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is its blood, and everyone that eats it shall be destroyed. And everyone which eats that shall and everyone which that eats which has died of itself, or is taken of beasts, either among the natives or among the strangers, shall wash his garments and bathe himself in water, and shall be unclean until the evening. Then shall he be clean. But if he do not wash his garments and do not bathe his body in water, then he shall bear his iniquity. Now, I read that because I wanted to really end this on a high note. I need y'all to understand. I'm reading this to y'all one more time. Remember, that's Old Testimony. And it says right here, just like this. Probably the Dead Sea Scrolls have had the greatest biblical impact. They have provided Old Testament manuscripts approximately 1,000 years older than our previous oldest manuscript. The Dead Sea Scrolls have demonstrated that the Old Testament was accurately transmitted during this interval. In addition, they provide a wealth of information of the times leading up to and during the life of Christ. Dr. Bryant Wood. Now, I'm going to get ready to salute y'all in on that high note because that was a beautiful one. I need y'all to understand this. The Dead Sea Scrolls, so 1,000 years older than their oldest manuscript, and yet the white man wrote it. On that note, my friends, I salute you. I'm out. It has been a bomb ass day.